we started with all of our footage and we synced it together and we got a transcript of that footage so that all of the words that people said have a time code that matches our sequence in Premiere, right? So we have our two cameras, our audio, that was all synced. We have a transcript. We went through and highlighted the transcript and thought of themes and then copied all of our selections into the category of a theme, what I think of as a chapter in the themes document. Then we took the themes document and we ordered things around. We moved things around to create a script. The goal now is that we are going to take that script that has time codes and we are going to go in and finally edit in Premiere now that we have a map of what we're trying to do. We're going to take the transcript and we're going to move it. We're going to take the script and we're going to move it onto the timeline in Premiere. Okay, so follow along. Here, I am going to open up my document. And then I also have my script here. So here I have my script and you can see, let me kind of make this bigger so that you can see me. You can tell here that I have all of these things ordered and this is my intro. So that's my theme at the beginning is this is my introduction. This is my chapter. Up at the top, we have what he said at 1 hour, 18 minutes and 3 seconds. The next one is at 1 hour, 18 minutes and 39 seconds. And then the third soundbite is at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And the fourth soundbite is at 13 minutes. Okay. So this is the script. Things are going to be out of order, but we're going to create, they're going to be out of chronological order, but in an order that makes sense for the film. And this is what I'm going to follow. So I like to kind of minimize this so that I can have this over here. I'm going to move this window with me in it over here. And this is my Premiere project file. Okay, so I have my 4 quadrants. I am in my editing window, my workspace editing. So I'm here. And over here, I have a lot more because I've already edited this project really, but you're going to have something that's called all, or maybe it is called interview. But this is where if I use my minus key to zoom out, I will have all of my stuff is synced here. And this is the sequence that matches my transcript. Okay. So now I need to create a new sequence so that I can copy and paste things from this into my draft 1. The easiest way to do that I have found is to just go to this match sequence. You can tell the icon is different and I'm going to right click, control click, and I'm going to press duplicate and I'm going to go ahead and call this draft 1 and I press enter. When I open it up, it's going to look exactly the same over here, right? So when I look over here, it is exactly the same as my all sequence. The issue is I don't want anything on it. So I'm going to go back to draft 1, make sure that I am in the quadrant, the lower right-hand quadrant, and I'm going to do Command A. Deletes everything from there, right? Okay, so Command A took it all out. And now I have an empty sequence and I'm going to move my cursor to the beginning of that sequence. And now I'm going to just toggle in between my documents. So here I'm going to go to the first soundbite that I have, 1 hour, 18 minutes and 3 seconds. I'm going to go to my all sequence. And I like to zoom out with my minus key so that I can see everything and just get into the right place. So the time code that I'm looking for is, let me kind of minimize this. I'm looking for 1 hour, 18 minutes and 3 seconds. So I'm just going to kind of go over here, 1 hour, I'm close. And now I'm going to use my plus key and I'm going to go in. And here, I'm just going to use my space bar to play.
I'm Nathan Myrick. I got my PhD in...
And so I'm going to zoom in and I can tell right here if let's kind of do this and I'll go and do this so you can see. Okay, if I zoom in to this right here, I can tell that he's talking because there's kind of a lot of waveforms, and then it goes to nothing and I don't see anything right here. It's silent. You want to include the silence of your waveform. That's really, really, really important. All right. Because we're going to try to edit this to sound as clear as possible. So I'm going to use my plus key and zoom in, go right to the end of when he says something that I don't want, select all of it, and Command K to cut. Okay. And then I'm going to hit spacebar and play.
I'm Nathan Myrick. I got my PhD in.
And when he gets to the end of it, I'm going to hit my spacebar and then I'm going to cut.
Theological ethics, and my training
So I'm just
is
following
as an
along.
musicologist. I work on music in Christian communities, and I look at how that activity forms people's ideas about God, about each other, about good, about justice, and I think about how music configures that.
So this is a perfect example. You can see here, just looking at this, that there's a lot of noise because he's talking and then he stops talking, right? So I'm going to play all the way until the end, and then I can see this jump. Or someone says something. I say, right? And I don't want to hear that. So I'm going to cut right at the beginning of that. And then I'm going to select this clip that I just created. I cut on the beginning, had the space before they started speaking, the waveform. And then if there is kind of a quiet spot at the end, and I'm going to select it, Command C for copy, go to my draft, Command V for paste. There we go. And then I go to the next thing. So 1 hour, 18 minutes, 39 seconds. So this is just going to be a little bit further. And this was something where the time code didn't match the time code in my transcript. Like it didn't quite match right because Otter sometimes creates a really large chunk of text, right? And so 139 is here and I had to listen to him.
Yeah.
Get all the way through it.
So I was driven by a single question in this.
I'm waiting for, so I got into this project.
No,
he doesn't like it.
That's too dramatic. So I got into this project trying to.
Perfect. This is much more natural, right? So I'm going to make a cut here at the end of this.
So I got into this project trying to answer a question that came out of the research that I did for my last book, which was called Music for Others. And
perfect. And then I put a cut at the very end, at the end of that space. So he talked, kind of trails off. And before he says the next phrase, I cut it. And you want to include the whole phrase. So I select it, Command C, go over to draft 1, Command V, right? And then I've got it. You want to include the whole phrase, even if there is a filler at the beginning. So if he says, so, right? So I got into this project. You want to kind of include the beginning of a phrase and the end of a phrase, because that's the way we speak. And we want this to sound as natural as possible. So those kind of lead up to saying what he says and then trails off, that actually is really, really helpful. Great. So the next thing, my next quote is at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So that's a really long way away. I can use this cursor at the bottom to kind of zoom over, or what I like to do, I just like to zoom out. So I'm going to zoom out with my minus key. And then these time codes tell me where my cursor is. So I'm just going to get kind of close to 350. And then I'm going to use my plus key. And then I can just kind of see up here that I've got a little bit more space. And now I'm going to look for, I made the claim.
Yeah, right.
So I'm using my space bar.
Great. Tell me a little bit about your project.
Okay. So part of what's going on with this is needing to.
He hasn't said it yet.
Just going to talk about where I'm at in my brain. So part of what's going on with this is that I made a claim in Music for Others.
So I actually want to include all that kind of fuzziness until he gets to this thing that I selected in my quote, because what I selected in my script is in the middle of a phrase that he's saying. I want to include the emptiness and the beginning of the phrase and then the end of the phrase so that it all can work together and sound natural. So I made my cut here.
So part of what's going on with this is that I made a claim in Music for Others that the best way to talk about justice is to talk about flourishing. Specifically,
and then you get all the way to the end, right? And then make the cut, and I'm gonna select it. Let me,
Specifically how Martha Nussbaum
so I'm just following my
describes
script.
flourishing as the capabilities and enabling and facilitating the capabilities of each individual within a community to live their best life, to be the best they can be. And I hate that term, living your best life, but there's something
Okay, so I want to cut him off kind of before he trails off.
community to live their best life, to be
So
of each individual within a community to live their best life, to be the best they can be.
and so I'm going to try to cut it. And the other shortcut that's really helpful is I can tell that I'm cutting him in between a phrase. He's in the middle of a phrase. So to get that right, I'm looking at my waveforms and I'm trying to see when there's a dip in the waveform. I don't want to cut at the peak of a waveform. I'd rather cut down here where it's closest to quiet, right? So down here, it's really quiet and this is him speaking. You don't want to cut in the middle of a word. You'd rather cut on the silence. Okay. So I am zooming in with my plus key and I'm going to use my arrow to go back until it is as close to 0 as possible. And I'm going to place a cut, Command K. The reason that works is because I have all these things selected. So Command K. And now I'm going to listen to the next.
And I hate that term, living your best life, but there's something.
Okay. So this was what I selected. I'm going to Command C, go here. And if you get your cursor kind of gets messed up, it's okay. Just don't cover your footage, but rather go to the right of your footage. And it's okay if there's a space, and then paste and then just keep going. We can delete these gaps later. Okay. So all of these are going to be in my sequence folder, all and draft one. All I want you to do is to go through and get all of the sound bites from your script and paste them into here. On Thursday, we're going to clean it up, but this is what I want you to do for class on Thursday. All right. That's it. And we're going to talk about finishing on Thursday. So it's really imperative that your projects are ready to go on Thursday, that you have everything just copy and pasted into a draft. We're going to talk about fine tuning your audio, kind of big changes that we can do, and then going between the 2 clips that you have. So we're going to cover a lot on Thursday, which will give you a lot of work to do over the weekend. So thank you. I will see you in class.